Ethan Davis always thought he had time. Time to figure things out, time to chase dreams, time to patch broken relationships. At 38, he wasn't where he thought he'd be in life. He lived alone in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, working a job he didn't care about and constantly comparing himself to friends who seemed to be thriving. His college roommate Jason owned 2 companies. His ex-girlfriend Caroline had a family, a house, and a life she seemed proud of. Ethan, on the other hand, was stuck, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And worst of all, he didn't know how to fix it. One cold evening, Ethan sat alone at the edge of his bed, scrolling through social media. He saw a post that read, "Until you learn these life lessons, changing your life is almost impossible." Something about that line hit him differently. It wasn't motivational fluff. It felt like a mirror held up to his soul. He saved the post and decided that starting tomorrow, he'd do something he hadn't done in years: reflect and take control. The next morning, instead of rushing through a coffee-fueled routine, Ethan sat down with a notebook and wrote at the top, "What's really keeping me stuck?" He stared at the page for a long time before writing, "I avoid hard truths." That realization wasn't easy. For too long, Ethan had avoided conversations, feedback, and realities that made him uncomfortable. The first lesson was clear: you cannot change what you won't confront. Over the next few weeks, Ethan began confronting truths he had buried for years. He had let fear of failure dictate his choices. He had sabotaged relationships because vulnerability scared him. He stayed in his comfort zone because it was easier than facing rejection. He'd always blamed bad luck or external circumstances, but deep down he knew the truth. His life was the sum total of the choices he made and the lessons he ignored. One night, he called his father, whom he hadn't spoken to in almost 5 years. The fallout had been over something petty, but pride had kept them apart. Ethan apologized. His father was quiet at first, then said, "I've missed you, son." That call changed something inside Ethan. He learned that forgiveness isn't just about the other person, it's about freeing yourself. As he reconciled with his father, he realized how much resentment and bitterness had weighed him down. For years, he had carried emotional baggage that blocked him from growing. Lesson 2 became clear: you can't build a better life if your heart is still holding onto old wounds. His job was another matter. He worked in data entry at a logistics firm. The pay was decent, but the work drained him. He had once dreamed of being a writer, but that dream had slowly faded into a dusty memory. He'd tell himself it was impractical or childish. But deep down he had just been afraid. Afraid he wasn't good enough. Afraid he'd be laughed at. So he pushed it away and called it realism. That month he started writing again. Nothing grand, just 1 paragraph a night. At first it felt awkward, like trying to walk after forgetting how. But soon he began to enjoy it. A short story here, a blog post there. He joined an online writing group and submitted his work. The feedback wasn't all glowing, but it was honest. And that was more valuable than praise. Lesson 3 hit home: action cures fear. The more you face it, the smaller it becomes. One Saturday afternoon, while walking in the park, he met someone. Her name was Megan, a schoolteacher with kind eyes and a curious spirit. They started chatting while waiting for coffee at a food truck. One conversation turned into another, then a walk, and then dinner the following week. Megan had her own struggles. She was recovering from a difficult divorce, but what made her stand out was her honesty. "Life doesn't wait for you to be ready," she once told him. "You either step in or you keep watching from the sidelines." Their connection deepened, but Ethan had to face another truth. He'd been emotionally unavailable for so long that opening up felt like stepping into a storm without an umbrella. But with Megan he wanted to try. He shared parts of himself he'd hidden for years. His regrets, his fears, his dreams. Megan didn't judge. She listened. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt seen. He learned lesson 4. Authenticity attracts the right people. When you stop pretending, the right ones stay. Change didn't come overnight. There were days he slipped back into old habits, days he doubted himself. But slowly he built momentum. He set small goals and celebrated little wins. He read books that challenged his mindset. He listened to podcasts about resilience, growth, and healing. He started taking care of his health. Morning walks, better meals, therapy sessions. He didn't chase perfection anymore. He chased progress. 1 year later, Ethan looked around his apartment and smiled. It wasn't much bigger, but the energy was different. His walls were lined with framed short stories he had published online. His relationship with Megan had grown stronger. He talked to his father every week. He even started a YouTube channel where he shared personal growth stories. He titled one of his first videos, "Until you learn these life lessons, changing your life is almost impossible." It got thousands of views and messages from people who felt seen, just like he had felt when he saw that post a year ago. Ethan now understood that life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. And change requires hard truths, forgiveness, courage, and consistency. He wasn't a guru or a motivational speaker, just a guy who finally stopped running from himself. When asked during a podcast interview what the most important life lesson was, Ethan paused and said, "Life will keep repeating its lessons until you finally learn them. Nothing changes until you do."